Every one of the 10 Commandments. They built fences around and said, you can do this, you can't do that. The Sabbath is a prime example of this. You know, the Sabbath was the most simplistic command. It's basically a commanded day of vacation. That's what the Sabbath is all about. Now, people talk about the Sabbath, that's bondage. Man, you don't want to be in bondage to the law. The Sabbath is bondage. Taking a day of vacation is bondage? I don't think so. But, people, they like to say these ignoramus things about, God's law and God's Sabbath. So, this fence building. So this is what they did. All right, the Sabbath was just a day of vacation, commanded day of vacation. But the Pharisees and the Sadducees of Jesus' day created the oral law. And they said, on the Sabbath you can walk this far, but if you walk that far, it's sinning. You can pick a few grapes off the vine on the Sabbath, but if you pick a whole cluster, that's sinning. You can do this, and they came up with all of this fence building around the law of God. All of these do's and don'ts and washings and washing of the hands and scrubbing of pots and just on and on and on. The oral law was fence building around every one of the 10 Commandments, so do's and don'ts, and it came out, it was man's law, not God's. Let's look at an example of this oral law. Matthew 12 and verse 1. And at that time Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck the ears of corn to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, why does your disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day? Not lawful to do? What are they talking about? Where'd they get it wasn't lawful? Now this is what they were doing. The disciples were walking through a field of corn, and they would slip, through their hands and shuck off, a few kernels of corn, pop it in their mouth as they walked along. Well, these religious nuts of Jesus' day looked and said, you're breaking the Sabbath. They're harvesting on the Sabbath. Where'd they get that? Where'd they come up with that idea? It was the oral law, man's law, tradition of the elders. That's what it's talking about. There existed 2 sets of laws in Jesus' day. The law of God that Moses wrote down, and the oral law, the tradition of the elders, man's law. One set of law was from God, the other set was from man.
Is that really in the Bible? What you think is in the Bible is not.